What's going on, guys? Brad here, and today I want to show you how to do text effects in Photoshop. If you see to my right here, I've got effects in a panel sitting here, which are from a collection called the John Forsyth 2014 collection. I bought these many years back when I was into buying like vector packs and different kind of graphics and textures to help me kind of in my own journey and how to learn. And so with this here, you've got obviously a bunch of different bevels and cool little effects. There's a fire section, there's wood, leather, and so it's a really good place to start off to see how it was done. So obviously I could just click on one of these and it would make this into that effect and it would be easy, but that's not going to teach you anything and it's not going to help us at all. So what I like to do is look at these first, and I like to look and see how they were done and try and replicate it on my own. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import a custom pattern, which is the starting point of most of these here. And once you get a pattern imported, that will allow you to then go over top of it with effects like the bevels, the embosses, the gradients and color overlays and that sort of stuff. So in this case, I've actually taken the liberty already. I had to do a little research to remember how to do it, but now that I recall, what I did was I found this rock texture online. It's a 4K, almost like a, looks like slate or something like that. And I was able to take this with the marquee tool. You highlight the graphic, then you go into edit, and you should be able to go down to where it says define pattern. And you can see here I've already defined it. Well, that's a different name. I had it set as dark stone texture. And once you do that and you hit OK, it will save this as a custom pattern that you can use for your text. And so that just kind of shows you the starting point for it. So obviously edit, define pattern, you would have your graphic already selected that it would choose, and that becomes your baseline pattern that you can click for any text in the future. So we go back to our graphic here, and we're just going to go to where it says text effects in my layers. You can see right here it says learning text effects. I'm going to go to my effects panel, which is just you can do this, you can double click on effects, or you can go down here and click on FX. Right now you can see I have the stroke and I have the drop shadow enabled. I'm just going to disable those to start off here. And the first thing we're going to do is you can do a texture or you can do a pattern. I believe either way it's the same thing. So let's just take a look at my textures, and there it is. Yeah, so dark stone texture, but you can see it's different. It doesn't have the same look to it. So I'm actually going to go back and disable that because that will be down the road. Right now it's got a bevel set in place. Let's go to pattern overlay. Let's enable that, and let's go down to right here. It should say dark stone texture, and you can see right away it's already applied that to my text. Now I can come in and I can start playing with the different options. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to bevel and emboss, and I like to kind of zoom in a bit to see what I'm working with here. And you can tell right away that the bevel is pretty heavy. It kind of takes your eyes away from the graphics, so you would go into the bevel and emboss option and you kind of just play with the depth here to get it the way you want it. So let's just say for now we'll do that. That's pretty, oh, maybe a bit more. That's kind of fair. And we'll take a look at our size here, and I'm essentially just adjusting the amount of bevel that's on the text. So we'll say that's pretty good for now. I could soften it if I want to, but that doesn't really help me. I like it to be sharp. I've got it set as inner bevel right now. You can do outer bevel and you can see it totally changes the dynamic, but it also kind of doesn't do it the way you want it to. It almost embosses the background behind the graphics. So that's not what we're looking to do here. So I'm going to set it back to inner bevel. It's set to chisel hard. There's three options. There's smooth, there's chisel hard, and then there's chisel soft. And I prefer chisel hard myself, that's just me. But you can see right away it's already turned that text into essentially like a beveled rock. So we're going to leave it as it is there. I may do a little bit of work on the highlights and such, but I don't toy with that too much. That's not really my, oh, that's actually kind of cool. Let's do that. I've kind of added a gold highlight to it. You can go and play with the shadows too, which they kind of muck around with. It almost looks like it's kind of on fire doing that. We'll just leave it as a black for now for the sake of this video. I'm not going to play with the options of how it's lit or how the blending modes are done. I'm actually going to move on now to contour, and that's kind of cool. It's a little much, but we're just doing this right now just to get a kind of feel for it. So contour is kind of interesting. I mean, I'm not too knowledgeable on contour. I'm going to be straightforward with you guys. I haven't done a lot of work on that. I've mostly just worked in the bevel and emboss section, and I've done a bit with textures. Now that's kind of cool. See, now the texture has been applied to the text, and it's an overlay that kind of just accents it versus the pattern, which actually covers the whole text. And you can kind of play with the scale of it. We'll just leave it. I'm just going to back it up and leave it at 100%. And then our depth is, you can see it kind of really dynamically changes it. I'm just going to leave it at maybe, we'll just leave it at 63% for now. I could throw a stroke back onto it. Obviously, you can see now that it's really starting to stand out versus just the regular text, which is, it's regular text. It's nothing to really write home about. Adding an inner glow to it, it kind of accentuates the edges of the bevel, but it kind of almost takes away from it a bit too. We'll leave it for that purpose. We'll leave it like that for now. Color overlay. I mean, I could do a color overlay to it. Maybe I will. We'll go with a color overlay for now. I'm just going to play with the colors around and kind of set it to an orange. That's actually kind of cool. That's actually very cool. Let's go with that. And then I might come back here and maybe drop the opacity down just a bit so it's not so overpowering. You can see it's already coming together too. It almost starts to look like brushed gold or, bronze or something really cool. I might come in here with a gradient overlay and play with that. I've already got one set from before in my previous work I was doing on the logo for my brand. So we'll just leave that for now. Maybe play with the opacity a little bit, but you can see that's actually really cool. That's actually really cool. Now it's got a bit of a gradient that kind of adds some allure to it. Won't play with that, and I won't play with drop shadow. Well, no, I will. I'll do a little bit of drop shadow. And the last thing I'm going to do on the text up here is I'm just going to adjust the kerning a bit, which is the spacing between letters. If you're a graphic design background, you would know this, but for anyone who doesn't, there's two types of things for letter spacing, which is kerning and tracking. Kerning would be the spacing between every individual letter, and you do that to essentially make it more readable. Tracking would be where the whole body of the text gets spaced out evenly, and in a lot of cases when you do this stuff, you would have it set to optical or auto, and it tries to do its best to allow it to look pretty fair, but I always come back and play with it a bit myself. So I'm just going to just really roughly kind of go through here and just kern the letters a bit, because with the black stroke behind it, it's bleeding together a bit. So we're just going to do a quick, if it would actually let me do it, that would be great. Just going to just really quickly go through here, kern it a little bit, kern it, no, a bit back that way. Maybe one there, one or two there. No, that's too much. And then you can see, yeah, but it's so cool what you can actually accomplish with a couple clicks in Photoshop. It's a very dynamic program. It's got so many robust options for stuff when it comes to the sense of editing text, editing photos, adding effects that you can do on the fly, and you can blend layer upon layer. It's a really cool program, and it's actually quite cost effective too. Photoshop's only about $15-ish Canadian per month. It's a very cool program. But you can see here that it's really cool how it's turning out. But what I don't like is that I'm kind of losing the lettering here. It's kind of, the gradient here is more present on the right than the left. So I might just come back in real quick and adjust the gradient so that it's more spaced out. You can see when I open my chart here, I'm just going to just take this slider and just kind of move it so that, yeah, there we go. So I get a bit more of everything. We'll go with that for now. So click OK. So that's the first part. That's the basic idea of today, is just showing you just the start of some of the effects you can do in Photoshop. That's the bevel emboss with a pattern behind it, and the idea was for me to simulate like marble or stone, but it actually turned into like a really cool metallic font. There's just so much you can do in Photoshop. It's a really cool program, and I absolutely love using it. It's one of my favorite vector programs to use, or I wouldn't call it a vector program versus Illustrator, but it's a really cool, robust program to use. So I'm going to leave it there, and I hope you get something out of this. I hope you really enjoy this content I'm putting out, and consider liking and subscribing for more content just like this.